Hello everyone. So in the previous video I started with the chapter string handling in C++. So we are continue with that same chapter. So now in this chapter we saw the arrays of characters or array of strings. So now we are going to discuss about two-dimensional array of string. So for the students, okay, this two-dimensional array of strings is in from the array chapter and from the string handling chapter also, especially from the array chapter. This 2D array uh, is reduced from the syllabus, but you have to go through that to understand, because this two-dimensional array of string is important. Okay, so in the string handling chapter this is included, so you have to go through that. Now, two-dimensional array of strings, it means that a multi-dimensional array is an array with two subscripts. So in one-dimensional array or in a normal array, you saw that you have only one subscript or one index, so which represents a list of values, so based on that one subscript you could create different array elements and assign them different lists of values. But here a multi-dimensional array, it simulates a table of values. So the data can be arranged in a sort of like a tabular format, rows and columns format. So now an array with two subscript is actually a two-dimensional array. Alright, so n is declared as, so here the data type, that is the data type of the array, so this is the array name. And the two subscript represents, the first one represents the row horizontal and the second one represents the column vertical. Alright, so since the two-dimensional array, it represents a table of values, right? So you can have a table structure, so a two-dimensional data format, so where the values will be arranged in the form of rows and columns. Alright, so the number of elements in the array, so if you have an array, then suppose like in the case of integer, okay, in the case of integer, if you have the two-dimensional can be for numeric values and also for character values also. So in the case of suppose like integer value, suppose like int num, okay, okay, here the rows is suppose like 5 rows, the column is like 20 columns, right? So the number of elements will be based on the product of rows and columns, so that is 5 into 20 equals to 100 elements. All right, so the array can create up to 100 elements. Now normally in a one subscript, in a single subscript, the number of subscript represents the number of elements that can be created, right? So in order to judge how many elements or how many variables can be created in a two-dimensional, you have to multiply the row into column. That way you can get how many elements this particular array can hold. All right, so now how do you declare and initialize a two-dimensional array? So we can declare two-dimensional array of string as here character. So you can see the data type has changed from integer to character, right? We have seen that also in the previous video. So if you have not watched, you go back and watch the first string handling video, right? So here character, name, and 3 10. So this index represents the row and this index represents the column. Alright, so now the number of elements created will be 3 into 10 equals to 30 elements. Alright, so here we have the table values that is based on this array and this row and column. Alright, so if you count the number of cells here, it will be 10, 20, 30. So you have exactly 30 elements, because each cell represents one element, or each cell represents one variable, right? So one value will be stored in each cell, so which will be stored in uh, one variable. All right, so here initializing can be done during declaration or at runtime using cin. Okay, so you can initialize this two-dimension array during the declaration that is in this format. Okay, so you can see that just like a normal initialization of array of once of a single subscript, so for two subscript also you can initialize in this format, except that here you have string values, right? So here within double quotes and then separated by commas, right? So in the next line you have again the strings. Okay, so as you can see that since these are strings, okay, multiple characters, so strings, so you can see that when it is when it is entered in the elements, you can see that the last after the last alphabet, it is ended with a /0, which is the null character, which signifies that this particular string has terminated, right? So it will move on to the next line and then fill up this area. Again you have null 0, so terminate this string. Again it comes here, right? So these are the three names which will be stored in this blocks. So as you can see that the unused space, okay, it will be so even though there is unused cells, okay, so still then it will not generate any error. Only thing is that the number of the index, okay, the values assigned should not be more than the index value, right? So you can see the strings are initialized as, so how will you so since it is in row and column format, so it will be stored in this format: character name, okay, this represents 0 0, that is row column, so 0 0 J, okay, character name 0 1, that is O, so John, right? So 0 1, all right. So after this is fill up, again it will come here 1 0, okay, so 1 0 R 1 1 A 1 2 M, okay, and then 2 0 B 2 1 I B 2 2 K. So this will fill up like that, right? So this is how you initialize during declaration time. And then also you can do it during runtime. So using programs, I'll show you how it can be done. So this is quite simple on that. So here, program to initialize 5 friends name at declaration using two-dimensional array. So you can see that this is a very simple program, but this though is simple program, yet you need to understand you need to understand, using this you can understand how the strings are initialized and then stored in the memory and displayed. Okay, so here as usual it starts with the header file, then main, and then within the main function body you can see that the array, so this is the array name of type character, and then the size is index is 5 rows 20 columns. So here these are the names that are entered, okay, John, Ramesh, Bikash, Sudhir and Vinod, so ended by the closing braces and then semicolon. So here I is declared, which why, because we are going to use the for loop, right? So here cout names are, as you can see in the output, names are will be displayed, okay, and then /n, which is a new line character which appends the cursor to the next line, right? So that you can see the next output is in the next line. If /n is not used, the next output will be here in the same line, all right? So now I equals to 0, I is less than 5, because the array index always starts with 0 and 0 is less than 5, right? So the test condition is done since it is true. So cout name, since it is within double quotes, so this is string, this is string constant, or you can say a string literal, all right? So in the previous video I've explained to you about types of strings, right? Strings as a constant and as a variable. So you can see that here this is a string variable, right? This is a string variable, string is used as variable, so here, and this is the string constant, so here this is also a literal because it is used in the cout. So name, okay, I plus 1 0 plus 1, so that makes it 1, that is name 1, and then within double quotes is colon, so it comes out here, and then name I, so name I means name 0, and what value is stored in name 0, this one, right? So it comes out John, right? So this will keep on going till I becomes 5 is less than 5. Once it becomes false, it will close the loop, okay, and then exit from the loop and then go to return 0, which means successful termination of the program. Okay, so this is during the declaration time. So when you declare when the array is initialized during declaration time, what happens is that you don't need to type anything from the keyboard, because the input value is pre-written in the program itself. All right, so initialization does that. All right, now next one is program to initialize the 5 friends name the same program but at runtime. Right, so the difference you observe is that when you do it during runtime, you will need the C input stream, and for that you will see that you need another for loop, because you need to enter 5 names, right? So if you have to enter 5 names, the loop needs to be repeated. So that's why the C out and the C in is statement is written in between the for loop. Okay, so as long as this I is less than 5, that is 4 is less than 5 or 5 is less than 5, which become false. Okay, so as long as this condition is true, this ender name and this name will be repeated again and again. So ender name, all right, and then again this will be repeated again and again. All right, so now after that, once this is done, again for the output, so like cout names are, this will be displayed, and then this for loop will again repeat, so that whatever you have stored in name 0, name 1, name 2 will be printed out. All right, so you can see that here user gets to enter from the keyboard, so the values are not pre-written in the program. All right, so this is runtime. So runtime means after you compile it, and then when you run it, then a prompt will be given, so you have to enter the value. Right, so this is difference between the initialization and then at runtime. Okay, though a small program, yet through this you can understand a lot, okay, the difference between that. So the more complex the program, the harder it is for you to understand. So using these smaller programs, okay, similar programs, you can understand the concept about string arrays much better. All right, so go through this, right, and then go through the previous video also, try to understand on that, because in this particular chapter, okay, there are programs based on this. So in the next class I'll be discussing about the string manipulation functions. All right.